Okie dokie. All right. So I think everybody's just coming over from the Build Toronto and Zena Manji talk that I just had to leave quickly so I could start this webinar. Thank you, John, for coming on and introing us into this challenge, which I think is the second time we're running during a summit. So I'm going to hand over the virtual reins to John Hammett, our Executive Director at HitLab, to tell us a little bit more about the Breakthrough Alliance while we get the crowd coming in. Over to you, John.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm the Executive Director of HitLab, and we're delighted to be once again offering an opportunity for a number of early stage companies to describe who they are and what they do and who they do it for, and most importantly, compete for the designation of a leading solution in this space. For those of you who might have come over from the session that just was wrapping up with Bill Toronto, one of the comments he made was, what's the end game for digital health in terms of at least the pharmaceutical or life science business that he was discussing? And I'd like to offer a slightly different point of view, which is there is no end game, because this is not a laser-like path forward. This is more of a chaotic, random walk journey of thousands of solutions, thousands of innovations taking place across a very broad spectrum of healthcare needs and healthcare opportunities, seen through the lens of inventors and entrepreneurs and innovators. And so to the extent that there is an end game, it will benefit many, and if not all, of the participants in the healthcare industry around the world. But there's not an end per se. There's actually just an evolutionary improvement in the state of therapeutic support for people with chronic disease, as well as efficiencies in the delivery of healthcare products and services, onto the invention of and the accelerated diffusion of solutions that make a difference in the world. And so what I'm going to suggest is that rather than look for a pinpoint end, we simply all saddle up and join the journey, and most importantly, enjoy the journey. These comments actually come out of an old cliche I heard years ago, and it was attributed to a number of different people, including Yogi Berra, who was known for certainly intelligent but misspeak throughout his life. And it goes as simply as, the future isn't what it used to be. And for those of us who sit here today at the leading edge of thinking about the opportunities across healthcare, the future is not what it used to be. It wasn't the future we thought we were going to see 5 years ago, and the future that we thought we were going to see 10 years back. And so in a sense, whatever future we're moving toward will not be the future we imagine it to be. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be more energetic. It's going to be more profoundly different than we can potentially see and imagine. And so at the end, Breakthrough is all about that. The HitLab Breakthrough Alliance is a collection of interests across the spectrum of healthcare, where we try to both identify and amplify those things that are important in areas of digital solutions and information-based capabilities, changing the face of healthcare, changing it for populations in need, changing it for the players in the industry themselves. Breakthrough Alliance is the structure, or the framework, if you will, through which HitLab tries to align with its partners and sponsors to move us forward. The benefits are pretty simple. We focus on connections and fostering those connections in terms of community through the membership in the program, which provides access to the investment capital necessary to grow new ideas. We also conduct rapid cycle evaluations, essentially the hard work of verifying both the therapeutic value and the economic value of innovations. And through all of that, continue to refine our ability to imagine a future, see a future, and filter the trends that make that future become reality. The competition today is between 5 companies. So we've got a couple of judges who are going to sit and listen to their story and try to understand the value that they bring to it and how they're planning to make a difference in the world. Jerry, I'm going to turn it back to you to introduce our judges and, more importantly, get the program on the road. Thank you.
No, thank you, John, for that very concise introduction into what the Breakthrough Alliance is all about. If you want to hear more about it, please visit hitlab.org/breakthrough, as well as hitlab.org/breakthrough1, which is our yearly or annual membership to get involved in the Breakthrough Alliance on an individual basis rather than an enterprise basis. But that leads me nicely onto actually thanking our two judges here, one of them being a Breakthrough One board member, Zina Manji, and Brendan Kumarasamy. I hope I said that correctly, Brendan. We'd love to hear a quick 60-second background on both of you, I guess, starting with Zina first, and then over to you, Brendan.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the invitation. Great to join and with Brendan. So I'm a PharmD and a master's in clinical pharmacy, but have a career in regulatory affairs currently at GSK Consumer Healthcare, where I'm senior director and I focus on innovation. And I'm also completed the Columbia Digital Health Certificate in Business Excellence. And indeed, I'm a Breakthrough One member.
Oh, thank you, Zina. Wonderful to have you on board in all these different facets of what HitLab is doing to just enrich the healthcare ecosystem and community. Over to you, Brendan.
Of course, thanks so much. And great to meet you as well, Zina. Hi, everyone. My name is Brendan Kumarasamy. I'm the founder of Master Talk. Master Talk is both a YouTube channel that I started many years ago to help the world gain access to free communication resources, especially in technical domains like many of the talented entrepreneurs will be presenting today. There aren't many resources out there to help people who can't afford a coach. So I started that YouTube channel a few years ago to help those folks. And I also have a coaching practice where I train many C-level executives in the healthcare space on how to pitch and convey their ideas to the world. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity as well. Over to you.
No, really, thank you, both of you for being on. And I'll turn back over to you, John, to talk about the 5 finalists that we have coming on. John, you there? Can you hear us, John?
I can.
Okay, perfect. Yes, so I was going to turn it over to you, John, to talk about the prizes and the 5 finalists that we have coming up.
Well, thanks again, Jerry, and thank you both to the judges and most importantly to the participants in this. Let me call it a competition, but it's actually a celebration of the kinds of excellence that's going on across the world of digital health. These 5 companies these companies are here today as a result of having competed against over 100 different entrants in this breakthrough challenge, where they were examined for the state of their solution, the quality of the management team, the solution or the changes that they were trying to bring about in the world of need across healthcare. And out of that population of 100, we selected these to compete. The 3rd place winner, and everyone here is sort of a winner of sorts, but 3rd place gets a study and a symposium presentation, a research study produced by on their behalf and in partnership with them through HitLab. 2nd place gets a publication about the quality of and the nature of their solution, and 1st place gets an additional form of both video presentation and media support for their solution. So these are let me call it the prizes, if you will, that go along with the competition here. And let's talk about the participants for a second. There we go. So these are the participants. I'm not going to describe them because they will all be described by themselves as they get into the individual pitches. And as I mentioned already, that these are the result of a distillation of over 100 applicants into those that appear to be the most promising, and those that the Breakthrough Board the people who represent life sciences and payers and providers and clinical interests across healthcare felt had the most interesting and intriguing opportunities, and more importantly, were poised to become potentially very successful in the near term. So with that, Jerry, I'm going to turn it back to you and let the drum roll start and the competition begin.
No, thank you, John. Wonderful to get that intro from you, especially to what the Breakthrough Alliance is doing, as well as the prizes that are up for grabs through this pitch competition. So we welcome all of our finalists to the stage. They're all going to go in a predetermined order to actually present each of their pitches. If you have not seen a Breakthrough Alliance pitch before, I just remind you of what the rules are if this is your first rodeo. So each company is going to get 15 minutes to present their digital health solution, and as well as answer any Q&A from the judges or the audience if we have time. And they can do it in any breakdown that they choose, whether it is half and half in terms of 7.5 and 7.5 pitch and 7.5 Q&A, or more of a pitch and then more of less of a Q&A afterwards. So with that being said, I'm going to turn over to WellBrain first, who is going to be presenting, and I believe that is Sumit. So Sumit, I'm going to give the spotlight over to you and also allow you to share your screen in one moment. And as soon as you start, your 50 minutes will go right on the clock. So when you're ready, Sumit, you should be able to share your screen. I think you're on mute, Sumit.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
And you can see, yeah, my colleague Susan was supposed to be presenting and all of us had trouble speaking and I mean, connecting to the system. And I think I just got into the system. So I guess if we could go later, that's fine. But if you need me to go first, I could probably do it. I know this is a competition, but we're having all types of technical issues. But
no, totally understandable. Maureen, are you ready to go? Okay, all right. So I will try and sort things out with Susan on your end, Sumit, and we'll have Maureen from MAMA go first.
Okay.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Awesome.
One moment.
Okay.
Oh, here it is.
Eric.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Eric?
Yep, just 1 second. Can somebody mute Sumit just before Maureen starts? She might get interrupted. Yep, no worries.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much to get this opportunity. I love HitLab. We are so honored that we were selected. I'm the CEO and founder of MAMA. This is a picture taken of me when I was 5 months pregnant. I was in the middle of a mental health crisis. I thought about killing myself every day. I never had a mental health issue in my life. Went to 29 different doctors over the span of 5 months, told all of them something was terribly wrong. And they just ushered me out. They didn't know what it was called. They didn't know what to do with me. And I thought, was this the norm? And I come to find out after looking at this for over a decade, made a documentary, created policy, spearheaded national campaigns, that this is actually the most common complication of having a baby. And it is the one most often overlooked and ignored by our physicians. Screening is abysmal. There are about 6 million pregnancies every year, 4 million live births, and up to 20% of women will develop a depression or anxiety in the pregnancy or the postpartum period. And this is devastating to families. And it has a very large price tag of $14.2 billion every single year for being untreated. So we created Mama to make sure no woman slips through the cracks like I did and like my friends did, and women who never made it through did. So the system, how it looks today is if you do have a provider that screens 3 to 6% screen, that's it out of 100%. They're going to give her a piece of paper. It's really archaic. She fills it out. They give it back. There's all these steps that they have to grade it. And then what happens if she says she is positive? She'll get a piece of paper that's been photocopied of a photocopy of a photocopy with phone numbers that might not work on it anymore. And that piece of paper gets shoved into a diaper bag or a purse and is probably never looked at. So the statistics show that even if a woman's lucky and she does get screened, only 15% will find their way to care. So 75% are slipping through these huge health system cracks. So what we did with Mama was it is instant screening, it's instant results, and it's instant care in just one step. It starts with physicians and it ends with patients. So a doctor will get onboarded. They get a special screening code. Mom screens in the office or at home, in the NICU, at the discharge, at her pediatrician's office, on her phone where she's most comfortable. And those results go straight back to that provider. They come with talking points. They come with triage phone numbers. They come with, they're able to be uploaded to the EHR. And at that same moment that that doctor is getting notified that there's something wrong with mom, so is Mama. So this is where this is very unique to what we do. We have laid the pipeline within the systems of care. So at the same time doc is getting notified, so is a Mama Care coordinator. And who are they? They're peer support specialists. They're women with lived experience. And we're not talking about they just check back with her once to say, let me find you a therapist, because it's more than screening. It's more than therapy, and it's more than a pill. So what we do is imagine like a quarterback. They're there managing the care of this woman who screens positive. They're able to set her up with therapy if that's what it is. They're available during non-business hours. They're able to help her manage that anxiety, the panic attacks, normalize her feelings, let her know she's not alone. So the average amount of time we spend with women is about 6 weeks. And we have 63 average touch points back and forth. So how are you doing? How are you sleeping? It's 10 o'clock at night and you have the NICU mom with her baby skin to skin. And all of a sudden her thoughts get really loud to her that she's a terrible mother. Our care coordinators are the one texting with her at that time saying, you're not a terrible mother. You deserve to sleep until 9 o'clock in the morning and then go visit your baby. And what have we seen with what this looks like by adding this instant care coordinator into this pipeline is women feel better faster. We have a 90% engagement. So remember that 15% number and the 75% slipping down those big cracks? Well, now they're engaging in care. And what does that mean? Women getting better faster and reporting that they're feeling better on average in 7 days. It took me 190 days just to find somebody who could help me, not 7, not 3. And 100% of women are getting that follow-up care. And we circle back to providers. So we started in January of 2021, and we've had some amazing traction in the healthcare space. We won the Johnson & Johnson Quickfire Challenge for DC maternal mortality. We work with the #1 children's NICU in the country. The March of Dimes is rolling out paid pilots into NICUs across the country. We've got the biggest vendor relationship in Florida. They only have 3 vendors that they're working with. Oops, I don't know why that's on. I don't know how to get that off, you guys. Sorry.
You're good, Maureen. Keep going. You're doing
Okay.
great, by the way.
Sorry. So, and we just found out that we won a really amazing award from the US government. We're not allowed to announce it yet. I think they're going to announce it in like a week, but just know that that's happened as well. So we're really excited. Our business model is really simple for systems that have robust care within them, and they're just looking for streamlined screening and referral. And we do 90 days of SMS CBT text messaging for women who screen positive. So they're always getting intervention. We do a screening subscription for them. We bill for our care coordination, and we've added licensed LCSWs and prescribers. So we're a one-stop maternal mental health solution for physicians and patients. And that's how we do our funding. That's how we pay for the good stuff. And we have an amazing team, you guys. These are women, advocates, clinicians, business women, doctors who have experienced a maternal mental health complication. And so we're all bringing what we know best. And that's why this is working so well. And that's it. I'm going to get off the screen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, guys. This is great. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Maureen, for that really wonderful in-depth presentation that you gave around Mama and stuff, and a wonderful story as well. So I'm going to turn it over to the judges. Zena, Brendan, do you have any questions for Maureen?
Just one quick clarification question. Amazing presentation, Maureen, and appreciate the story to really bring it to life there. The 90% you mentioned, what was the, I missed the total number of women that were part of that.
Oh, we've done 1,200 screens in the past year and a half, and 20% have been positive. So that's from those numbers. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Zena? Or I can jump in. Just wanted to
Go
make sure.
ahead.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. Perfect. Well, thanks for your presentation, Maureen. That was excellent. Loved the mission. Love what you're up to in the world. So since we have 7 minutes, I have a couple of questions. Let's start with the first one. So when we compare the application process to the archaic solution you talked about, where mothers kind of pick out the papers, and the new digital solution that you're providing now, can you talk about some of the significant changes you made between the old solution versus the new, or is it just a copy paste of the old solution just in a more digital form? I just want to hear more of your thought process between both applications.
Yeah, so we have to use the validated screeners. We have to use those because we can't identify symptoms of depression and anxiety without them. So what we were able to do was just streamline that process. So we thought it was just the screen part that we had to make easier for physicians. So that's what we came to solve. But then we found out that it was bigger than that. It was also, how do you create a pipeline, like create the technology that can help women engage in care? So how could we take the disease burden off of women? What could we do with technology to do that? And by also adding in intervention text for 90 days, which no woman has opted out of to date. Even if those 10% of women don't want to engage with their care coordinator, they say their anxiety is normal. They say, this is normal for me after having a baby. They're still getting this intervention tool. They're still getting this engagement, even if they're not working one-on-one with a care coordinator or going into therapy or taking medicine. So that's kind of the way that we're really leveraging the technology to improve the whole system and the pathway of care.
Absolutely, Maureen. Feel free to jump in anytime, Zena. I want to make sure I'm not monopolizing.
Yeah. So
Go-
a quick one on what you were just mentioning. The care coordinator aspect for the subscription model and that care coordination, is that reimbursable? Or have you found employer insurance or other types of insurance being open to providing care?
Yes, we've been able to identify a set of unique codes, CPT codes for collaborative care. So we're utilizing like a workforce that is like abundant. And we're finding a really unique way to give this real critical care. This way we can keep women who we can get better with that peer support, and we can save up our therapists for those women that are more acute and critical. So it's a really great way to meet all women and to have enough care for everybody at the levels that they need it.
So then you have a way to triage as well.
Yes, exactly. Because a lot of solutions right now are just like therapy, but that's not necessarily what every woman needs. And only 40 to 60% of our patients actually need that or want that. So we're able to meet each where they are.
Fantastic.
That's excellent. Love that. I guess we'll do one back and forth, Zena. I want to make sure I'm not interrupted. Yeah, absolutely. So in the context of the business model, Maureen, you mentioned 4 key areas there on the slide. I didn't have the chance to write all of them down. As a founder, where do you see most of the revenue coming from in the next few years out of those 4 models that you described in the pitch, and why?
Great question. Our highest profit margin is in the care coordination. We're able to deliver that at a pretty great price, but get a nice reimbursement for that. And the majority of our moms are all getting that. But we can do a lot with charging for therapy and medication management for sure. So those two service areas are where we can really get the most and pay for everything that we're doing.
Gotcha. So just to follow up that, do you see most of that specific piece that you mentioned driving 80-90% of the business? Or is
I
it
would-
more of like a, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say it's more of the therapy, because women are engaged in that for an average of 13 sessions, and then the medication like 18 sessions. So that's probably more of the driver. But each one we've been able to find, like we're using every little piece we can find, like where could we be able to bill for? So I think we've been doing it for a while. So we're just whatever we can use, we'll do.
Go ahead, Zina.
No, really great to hear the feedback that you mentioned and the engagement of women in the platform, because ideas can be good, but that doesn't mean it's providing value. So I think that's really interesting. Just curious, have you learned anything from that feedback that gave you insight to improve?
For sure. Yeah, we've realized like with some physicians, we need to do a little better onboarding. The one thing we want to do is keep women out of the ER. And so if we have a doctor that just jumps to, oh, she said she has thoughts of self-harm, let's just send her to the ER. So we had a doctor do that. So we were like, okay, so we need to do a little bit more of our onboarding and education with our physicians to make sure, because this is what our goal is the least harm. Let's do least harm with her. So that was a big one. Also, we when we first started, we thought, oh, we'll just do screening subscriptions to providers, but their screening reimbursement is so low that it just wasn't a viable business model. So we really had to take a hard look at, we're doing something really good, it works, so we have to figure out how to pay for it. And that's where we're at right now. We found a model that really works, so we can continue to do this work.
That's great.
I love that. Yeah, it's really good answer, Maureen. And then I think we had time for like one or two. I would say the last question for me would be, yes, talk to us about the vision, right, in the next 3 to 5 years, now that you have a lot of great traction. I'm curious how you see the business going in the next 2 to 3 years, and talk about some of the milestones that you're looking to hit in the company within the next 12, 24 months.
Well, such a great question. So we're looking to create 5 friendly mama care groups in 5 different locations in the next 12 months with our LCSWs, our prescribers, and getting the funnel worked in. We're also going to start to do some direct to consumer, which is a great way for women who can find their way to care. They can do it just by finding us. But I really love that we've created that pipeline for physicians. We want to get into every state in the next 24 months. It's the solution that works. We want to be in the doctor's office. A lot of people think just build it for women and have them find it. But we've created such a seamless pipeline that we got into this to get doctors to screen. We wanted them to pick it up. So with these 2 things, we just want to be in every state for sure within the next 2 years. And we want to create the new gold standard of screening and care for maternal mental health. Women don't have to suffer that long. We can get them better. We're not looking for a cure, it's really the pipeline. That's where this is stuck.
It sounds like part of your vision is really advancing the standard of care.
Yeah, oh my God. Yes. That's what we came for. We've been told by people, just go the employer route, but we're sticking to our vision. We need our doctors to be doing this work. And so we're going to make it easy for them. And that's how we got the pipeline. And I don't think anyone's doing that. This exclusive kind of pipeline, that they're not making like a fax referral. They're not having to call or email. It's instant.
You're getting feedback from doctors as well, because it must make them feel good that they're actually able to help.
It's been very healing for me, because my journey was so hard and I didn't trust my doctors very well. And their feedback has been overwhelming support. And where were you 30 years ago? And I won't screen without mama. Now I don't have to just cross my fingers and hope she finds her way. And they'll call us about their own family and friends, like we've become a trusted part of their practice. So it's that part is very humbling for me, and it's been really important on the journey to be able to work with these doctors and support their patients and them. It's quite an honor.
Congratulations, that's really great.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Maureen. Really, again, really wonderful story. Fantastic presentation, Maureen. Thanks for coming on and showing us Mama. And Zena and Brendan, thank you so much for your very thoughtful questions. I'd like to call on to the stage now Annalisa, who will be presenting Rayos to us. So when you're ready, I think I've allowed you to share your screen, Annalisa. So as soon as you start, your 15 minutes will start ticking.
Great, thanks so much. Let me just share my screen here. I want to make sure that this is the right one. Yep, okay. Can you all see this? Fantastic, I got a thumbs up there. So I'm Annalisa Samara, CEO and co-founder of Rayos. So I've spent about 18 years working with early stage companies, wearing many hats, including venture capital, tech transfer, starting and selling my own company, and playing senior management roles in a number of companies across the country. And I was content with the supportive role for the rest of my life. But that was until I came across a certain digital health wearable that looks like this. And it comes out of one of the biggest labs in the world, the Rogers Lab. He's a world-renowned material scientist. And the technology we're developing has potential to impact the lives of people like Jane here, a gifted student and competitive swimmer. See, she has this condition called hydrocephalus that slows her down. And before I tell you what it is, let me tell you what it feels like. And it feels like a ticking time bomb in your head. And it's characterized by excess fluid on the brain. And that fluid is called cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. And about 1 million Americans have it, and there's no cure for it. And it's characterized by the excess fluid, and 1 million, here's some of their faces of the 1 million hydro warriors. And the standard treatment right now is invasive neurosurgery through the placement of something called a shunt that drains the brain of the excess fluid that I was talking about. Now, shunt technology has been around for decades, actually over 50 years. But the problem with this gold standard is that it fails, and it fails almost all the time. So you're putting in a foreign object invasively into someone, and it's supposed to drain the brain of the excess fluid, but it fails due to things like infection, obstruction, dislodgement, that sort of thing. And when that happens, another shunt needs to be placed in. So it's not uncommon for kids like Jack here, who are born with hydrocephalus, to have multiple brain surgeries before they even reach adulthood. Not only that, what's even more difficult than repeat neurosurgeries, as if it can get worse than that, right, is that patients can exhibit everyday things, so non-specific symptoms when something is wrong with their shunt. So simple things like headaches, nausea, things that you and I might feel every day. These can be life-threatening, symptoms to patients with hydrocephalus. And there's a strong need for diagnosing these non-specific symptoms, and the options that are available today aren't great. So the standard of care is imaging. And the problem with imaging is that it gives you a snapshot of the brain structures. So the structures that make that CSF, but there's no real information, direct information about flow. There's also other modalities used that are more invasive, like shunt taps. There's another technology called ShuntCheck that's sometimes used, but these are not great technologies to use. And after clinicians go through kind of just this multitude of different things that don't really give them direct information about flow, patients either go home because they're having a bad day unrelated to the shunt, and a lot of patients living with this uncurable, terrible chronic condition do go to the ER multiple times a year, and sometimes they just go right back home because they're having a bad day unrelated to the shunt, or they go in for an invasive neurosurgery to literally see if that tube is dripping. At that point, a new shunt may be placed in. And this whole cycle repeats itself. And there's no, cure for hydrocephalus. Patients go home only to come back again because of, repeated shunt failure. And there's no product available today that can easily assess exactly what's going on within that shunt until today. So Rayos has developed FlowSense. It's a digital health wearable technology that is non-invasive wireless wearable. And this technology has academic roots out of Northwestern University. Was developed on the bench for and worked on the bench for about 10 years, early clinical data, that sort of thing. And I, along with my team, licensed that technology out and built it under FDA quality and other regulations for more of a commercially viable product. And this is what you see here today. The product on the right is FDA regulated, and this is what we're launching later this year. And how it works exactly is that we put it on the skin over the shunt, and it's around the clavicle region, so kind of like your collarbone. That's where your shunt is most palpable. You place it on the skin, and we deliver a little bit of heat to the skin surface. And if there's flow within that shunt, that heat dissipates in the direction of flow. And we have temperature sensors that pick up that activity. It kicks it off via Bluetooth chip to a mobile app that has a super special algorithm that can, in a matter of minutes, tell the clinician if there's flow, no flow, along with quantitative information about flow. No capital equipment needed, just our sensor and an iPad. In terms of clinical traction, we have published clinical data in Science and Nature family journals. We are currently conducting our pivotal study needed for FDA de novo authorization, de novo 510(k) authorization. It's a 9-center study. We're working with hospitals from coast to coast, from UCSF and Stanford all the way to Duke. In terms of intellectual property, we actually own the thermal flow sense space for Raos. So that includes 2 issued patents along with a notice of allowance. So we'll have 3 issued patents. We also have our own filings as well. A freedom to operate analysis was performed by our largest investor in our last seed round, and that came out clear. So we own the thermal flow sense space for all types of fluid, not just cerebrospinal fluid. In terms of regulatory traction, we were designated FDA breakthrough for de novo 510(k). And what that means essentially is a faster path to regulatory approval. We are doing that study needed for approval right now at those centers that I talked about across the country. And we'll be done with that study at the end of the summer. We're working with chiefs of neurosurgery across the country. We've met with the FDA 4 times already. They're comfortable with our device, our study design, and all we need to do is complete the study, submit the regulatory application, and we'll be ready to go in terms of selling it for our first product. We're initially launching our digital product in the hospital, kind of like continuous glucose monitors. For those of you who don't know, those devices had their origins in the hospital first and made their way into the homes and used by millions of Americans across the country. So we're following that kind of following their footsteps in that respect, where we're launching in the hospital because we want neurosurgeons, neurologists, ER physicians, nurse practitioners, nurses, other clinicians to be comfortable with our device. And we follow the clinicians and patients wherever they are, both in the inpatient setting and the outpatient setting. But we realized too, in addition to the hospital device, that remote wearable for continuous long-term monitoring is, especially important for these patients. We were fortunate to receive a $1 million grant from the National Science Foundation to develop that home-based device. The hospital device, we are also fortunate to receive some funding from the NIH for the development of that device, as well as outcomes-based studies, and that's a $4 million grant. In terms of value propositions, we spent a lot of time talking with stakeholders, patients, providers, payers, that sort of thing. And the value props that FlowSense can potentially bring is a reduction in unnecessary ER visits, radiation exposure, and more. So I've talked a bit about hydrocephalus, but just know we're not stopping there. We're actually taking our platform technology. I have it here in my hand. This is one that we're launching later this year. And we're looking at other areas of flow. We're looking at blood flow, like in dialysis, potentially patients who are undergoing hemodialysis, potentially peritoneal dialysis, as well as plastic surgery applications and lymph flow in patients who unfortunately suffer lymphedema. And we have broad patent protection for that and are working with some academic collaborators to build out the portfolio already. Here's the Raos squad. I steer the ship with close to 2 decades of startup experience, and I brought along some great friends of mine to help me navigate through this startup journey. And we're experts in our respective domains, whether it's finance, product development, material sciences, finance, and more. Here's a snapshot of some of our current clinical trial investigators. This includes chiefs of neurosurgery across the country, some of the biggest named academic hospitals that we're working with right now. Whoops, did I skipped a few steps. So in terms of financing, we have brought in over $8 million to date, the bulk of which is non-dilutive funding to do, great, outcomes-based studies, that sort of thing. We're currently raising a price round of $8 million specifically for launch. So our current funding takes us through regulatory approval. Now, we realize the value of a network support. So we've been involved with a number of programs across the country. We just finished the KidsX Accelerator program. That was a digital health program in collaboration with AWS. Now, in terms of, why I'm here, I'm looking to get more collaborators, especially on the clinical research side. We've got a great team. We have a device ready. I have it in my hand. We have funding to, complete that, but we're looking to do more data, more studies rather, to collect more data so that, we can have broad adoption across the country. And this is both for our hospital and home products. So in summary, Raos has a breakthrough platform technology. We're working with some of the biggest name players across the country. It's led by an experienced medical device team that has surely had its share of bumps, bruises, and tears. And we're looking to launch our first product later this year. We're looking for financing to launch that product. And more importantly, looking for additional research partners to help realize our vision. So that's a bit about Raos. That's a bit about me. I'm happy to take any questions that you guys might have.
Go ahead, Zena. I'll go after you. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah, go ahead.
That's fantastic, Anna. Congratulations on getting the breakthrough designation. Certainly not easy and
No, thank you.
Very meaningful. I had a question for the follow-on for the home device. How do you see that working in terms of, like you were mentioning, the app in the hospital version? Would the clinician would be able to see the flow and interpret that? How would the home device work?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The home device is currently in development right now, and we know that I think the pandemic has really shined a light on remote wearables and gathering that relevant biometric data to inform clinical decisions, right? So, we're talking with neurosurgeons right now, neurosurgeons, caregivers, patients, that sort of thing, in terms of like what each party wants to see. So, patients may want to see that data every day, but neurosurgeons say, you know what, you might not need to see that every day necessarily, because if you see that every day, you might call me every day, which might not be an emergency. So we're doing, a number of customer discovery interviews alongside of product development. But what it's kind of turning out to be, at least early indications, is that there could be, a couple of measurements a week for a couple hours a day. This is not something that will be worn for a whole week straight, kind of like set it and forget it like a crock pot. It's not like that. It would be, put on, probably worn for, a couple of hours, some readings, and that will be sent off into the cloud, where our algorithm will analyze that data, kick it off to the clinician at the hospital. So, an NP, a PA, neurosurgeon can, look at that data and make the decision at that point.
Okay. So it would be the patient can be at home, but the clinician will still be assessing. That's great.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our sensor, the home sensor, will look, like this. It might be, a little thicker because this hospital device is meant to be a single-use disposable spot check, but the home device is reusable and rechargeable. We're working with a contract manufacturer in Minnesota who makes, wearables for, Medtronic, et cetera, all over the country. So it'll be just a little bit bigger, but, the patient and caregiver will be able to put it on themselves, and we'll be conducting usability studies. So, they don't mess up. And then there's also a bit of forgiveness on this device. So it doesn't have to be exactly right on the shunts. There is some, flexibility. So if in case there's misalignment.
Excellent. Thank you. Brendan, I can't see you on screen, so I'm not sure.
I think we have time for one more question, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Oh, you can't see me on screen? That's weird. Can you see me on screen, Annalisa? Are you good to?
I can stop sharing. Is this
Oh, there we go.
now?
Okay.
No,
Okay.
you're all good. Excellent.
Okay.
By the Yeah, excellent progress, Annalise, and congratulations on all the success as well. Yeah, the only question I had was in regards to go to market. So very specifically to what Zena was saying, I just wanted your point of view as a founder, because you have two use cases here, one for the
Yeah.
in-home, one for the hospital. So how do you think, are you thinking about selling both of those markets at the same time? Are you going to
Oh,
do one at a
no.
time? Are you going to split it to, and if you're going to sell the first one first,
Yeah.
just walk through that for us for 30
Yeah,
seconds.
absolutely. So those are going to be two different products. So the home will be, I'm sorry, the hospital will be launched first because we want to get neurosurgeons, NPs, PAs, ED docs comfortable with the device. And that's what the technology is, ready for that spot check. So, we have, we'll have a small internal sales team, and our first customers will be the 9+ hospitals that we're already working with for our pivotal study. So the home device that's out, that'll be a couple years out. That's in development right now. So probably like 2.5 years, but we want to make sure that it's done right. And before it's launched.
Yeah, so then
Perfect.
CGMs is a good analogy there.
Yeah. They're good footsteps to follow, kind of a strong one to follow. We'll see.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Annalisa. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great progress.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Of course.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for coming on, Annalisa, and sharing Rayos with us. I'm going to pass over the baton to Susan Perry from Telanus. So Susan, if you want to share your screen and take center stage, we'd love to hear more about Telanus.
Absolutely. Can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Hello, everyone. I'm the CEO of Telanus, and I'm deeply honored to be here. Most of us would agree that any medicine or care is only as good as a patient's ability to use it. And the question we ask every day is, how are people supposed to follow instructions that they don't understand? So I want to introduce you to SpeechMed, our smart device application that removes health literacy issues like a user's language preference, their age, vision, or their literacy level. So imagine that your life depends on taking a bottle of pills properly. And now imagine that you don't understand what's on the bottle, and neither does anybody in your family. That's a challenge that millions, about 130 million people, struggle with every day. Adult literacy at a proficient level is only about 12%, and 1 in 5 of us goes home to a family that speaks a language other than English. And regrettably, at every touch point in healthcare, we're expecting patients to read well in English, and we all know how that ends. Roughly $600 billion in additional cost and millions of lives lost. The consequences of low health literacy are devastating. My family was affected by negative consequences because my French mother-in-law, Giselle, went to a hospital for a rather minor inconvenience. Upon discharge, she received instructions to stop taking 2 medicines and start taking 2 other medicines because she spoke English pretty well. They gave her all her discharge instructions in English. She went home, she double dosed on hypertension and anticoagulant medicine. 5 days later, 16 weeks in intensive care, $500,000 bill to the taxpayers, and eventually her death. And my grandchildren lost their grandmother. Unfortunately, medical mishaps due to communication and language are too common, and there's one approximately every 15 minutes. SpeechMed is using AI technology to go kind of beyond traditional paper instructions. We've developed proprietary field translation scripting algorithms that use machine learning and our human expertise to translate from English to, which is what we use as a source language, to any other language for 100% accurate translation of medication reminders. We've developed an award-winning enterprise system that empowers healthcare providers to give every patient medical instructions in the language that they understand. It educates a patient, provides care instructions, provides reminders, and helps them understand and coordinate their care. In multi-generational households, you press one button and the family member can select whatever language they're most comfortable in. And in about 3 months, it will connect to a companion caregiver application that will allow remote monitoring. SpeechMed is specifically designed for seniors, people with low literacy for a million reasons, and the rest of us who are looking for an easy way to keep track of our health information. SpeechMed translates care instructions, allergies, and other vital health information, and it simplifies it. So if my mother-in-law had gone home with her voice and language application, she would have been able to listen to all of her discharge instructions in French. I would have been able to listen to them in English, and her caregiver, Maria, would have been able to listen in Spanish. Everybody on the same page. We could have avoided the confusion that led to her medication mishap completely. And because it's powered by voice, voice is really important. Elderly and visually impaired patients and people that can't rely on written instructions can hear their care in the language that they understand. And if they forget, they can listen again. It's hard to imagine that medical miscommunication can happen with the simplest instructions like take once a day. This is a situation that actually happened and can easily happen. A Hispanic elder was given her hypertension medicine bottle written in English. The word once in English means one time. The word once or once to a Spanish reader is 11. She took 11 pills. That's why we're fighting health disparity, where users receive pop-up and audio reminders in their native language. So which is easier to understand? Through SpeechMed, we can send simple reminders with an actual picture of the pill, and it can be changed if it's a new generic pill, and tell them how to take their medicine, when to take their medicine, and archive that for their doctors. In addition, if they miss a medication, we can send an alert to their caregiver to give them a call. And if they're confused because it's a complicated procedure, like how to use your EpiPen, we can send them multilingual explainer videos very quick, very easily. And this allows caregivers to remotely monitor medication compliance and assist a loved one from a distance, which has been really important during these pandemic times. When an emergency occurs, the only thing we're thinking about is getting to the ER, right? We don't think about our medication list. We're not thinking about allergies or health history or anything like that. All the things that they ask when they're trying to admit you to the hospital, especially during these pandemic times, we never know when the next emergency is going to happen for us or our family or where we'll be. We want people to be prepared and provide document storage on SpeechMed, so they always have access to their health history, like allergies, updated medication lists, insurance information, and maybe other documents like an advanced directive, for example. You can also pull up your COVID vaccination card with 2 clicks, and it stores contact information for family members, physicians, caregivers, everything in one place. I know I've spoken about medication reminders, but SpeechMed is a fully functional patient engagement platform that can be customized to each patient with care instructions, educational videos, or specialty drug instructions that we use a lot at Baptist Hospital. We offer B2C and B2B SaaS solutions to work with patients, caregivers, care providers, hospitals, pharma, insurance companies. SpeechMed Solo is downloadable on the Google store right now for Android for $5.99 a month for the full feature one. But we also offer a free version because we don't want anybody to be stuck without their information. We have an administrative portal for enterprise to manage multiple patients. And we're going to launch a new program for providers to use SpeechMed for remote patient monitoring in the next 12 months. Talking about the market for SpeechMed, the elderly population will double by 2060 to 95 million people. Nearly half of our general population has at least one chronic disease, and it rises for elders to 86%. 70% of those seniors are going to need caregiving. The rate of medication errors almost doubles for patients with low English proficiency, and language barriers are not addressed by the healthcare system. Bilingual staff, phone translations, written translations, but they're offered in limited capacity for a few languages, and they are completely out of reach for many vulnerable and underserved populations. While there are different applications in the market to assist patients, we've built the only software that allows patients to hear their directions in multiple languages. We look at our competition as potential friends, customers, partners, because we can add our capabilities to their products. This consumer SpeechMed Solo app is available on Android. We're developing an iOS version. We're conducting a clinical trial with Baptist Hospital in neuroscience and a paid pilot with Bless Medical Center. With Baptist, the clinical trial centers around measuring SpeechMed's effectiveness in improving readmissions, medical literacy, patient satisfaction, which we get huge happiness about, and the overall health of Spanish-speaking stroke patients compared to patients that only receive the normal written discharge instructions. And we're exceeding our goals in everything we measure. Bless provides health services catering to a Haitian population, and we're helping their patients manage especially their medication reminders through SpeechMed. There are currently no services other than some written translations for this population, even though there's 1 million people in the United States. So we've created the first Creole voice system. And in addition, we're about to launch a proof of concept with InterSystems, a tool that powers Epic and 3M Health to automatically extract information from hospital EMRs and seamlessly load the information to SpeechMed. We do that on a small basis, but we're working to do it with everyone. So we're on a mission of inclusion to make healthcare information understandable to everyone, regardless of their language, their vision, their ability to read. And we're building a platform to remove language barriers for populations that are frequently ignored because they're too difficult. We'll release SpeechMed Duo, our new caregiver application this year. We're in negotiations with several software and hardware companies to partner with them. We're conducting one clinical trial and hope to partner with companies to make it easier to reach underserved populations. Improving health literacy for all of our patients through technology is so important for our team. We are each multilingual, multicultural, and multi-generational caregivers and understand firsthand the financial and emotional responsibilities of giving our loved ones their best days while still preserving resources for future generations. Our team started on this journey in hospitality with the first audio digital restaurant menu in the world. And we've studied user experience in restaurants, zoos, and other entertainment venues before we moved to healthcare. So we really have a good grip on what makes people interact. We're experienced, focused experts in this space, and our mission is to make care directions accessible to everyone, especially those that are frequently ignored and left behind. So please consider joining our efforts to bring a new communication future to healthcare, and we thank you.
Great job, Susan. Feel free to unshare so that you can see our faces. Go ahead, Zena. I'll go after you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Susan, fantastic, and really see the unmet need there for sure, and well presented. I had a question about how you're inputting into the tool. So for example, can you just talk through,
So
let's say a patient gets patient information, how is that entered into
Okay.
the tool?
So it happens in a couple of ways. At Baptist Hospital, it's getting pulled from discharge instructions from their EHR. When they go home, they have a patient portal that they can add to. They can add their medication, maybe their vitamin reminders.
Okay.
They can add more information. It can be updated remotely. And then we have quite a few people that have just asked, can we have that app for my mom or whatever? Tons of them, which is why we even released the consumer app, because we weren't thinking that way and we really don't push it that much. And we have thousands of people signed up. So in that case, they're going to the patient portal. They're filling out the information that they want to fill out. They're downloading it to a little cheap device, an Android device. We suggest if it's an elder, maybe give them a 7-inch device, but they could also put it on their cell phone. It just depends on the patient. And the reason we actually built for Android first is because you can buy an Android device for about $35 versus, buying mom an iPad. And there are lots of families that can't afford it, right? So.
Thank you. Brendan, I'll let you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I know there's not a lot of time. Thanks so much, Susan. Your solution definitely touches close to home for sure. So, and quick feedback on this. I know I'm not supposed to give feedback. That 1 versus 11 pill story, you got to start with that because that really gets people's attention. But anyways, let me jump in the question because we're already out of time, but I just want to point it out. The only question I had, and I'm sure you've thought about this, is just user adoption. Because I think one of the challenges, because a lot of these people in healthcare, who need the service are relatively older, they're not as tech savvy. So I'm just curious, what data do you have on, you go in any direction, what data do you have on user adoption? What are some of the challenges that you've seen? And then have you been able to mitigate that over the course of the product development cycle?
We're still working on that, but what we found is most of the elders have a caregiver, right? If they're exceptionally old, and we can't, the 60 to 75-year-old, we can't say that they're not going to be able to use the app anymore, because a lot of them are extremely, literate with computers. When they have difficulty, we help them along, at least for the initial setup. Their doctor, at Baptist, they're very motivated to get people on the app because they're seeing such incredibly good results, especially with things like anxiety readmission. There's a lot of people that go back to the emergency room because they're frightened about something that they're not sure about. And we send them home with videos and, all kinds of educational material too. So the readmission rates have gone down. Everything is up that's supposed to be and down that's not supposed to be. So.
Thanks so
Yes.
much, Susan. Thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Susan. Thank you for adding to the list of wonderful presentations today already, and really glad to be able to hear you share your story as well. So really well done. So we are on to our penultimate presenter. It's going to be Shannon from My Health Hatch. Shannon, are you there?
I am. Thank you.
Okay. I
Sure,
think I gave you co-host permission, so you should be able to share your screen right now, and you are spotlighted. So as soon as you say your first word, we'll start the timer.
Okay, give me 1 second to get my screen into slideshow mode and minimize some of these windows on the side. Perfect. I'm ready to go. Thank you. So thank you. Hi, I'm Shannon Ellsworth. I am founder and CEO of My Health Hatch, building a software with the goal of integrating the caregiver into the patient care into the patient care team with the healthcare community. A little bit about myself. I've been in technology for almost 30 years, and the majority of it, if you looked at my LinkedIn, is in networking, wireless technology, not a typical healthcare background that you would see. But here's why I ended up here and then how I've made that transition. My mother, I spent 12 years with my mother, and I take care of my father right now. My mother had 2 chronic illnesses, one that became acute, and unfortunately she ended up passing. In the midst of that, I spent probably 60% of my week running around taking care of my mother with tasks that she just couldn't take care of, trying to minimize the amount of time she was visiting doctors, lab tests, hospital record transfers, educating, Googling, understanding her records, understanding what the doctor was saying when they were passing us off to somebody. There's no bad person in that scenario, such that except for the fact that the fragmentation that's happened has created a really big stress on the patient community. And so what I found as a caregiver is I struggled, and we see this in the stats all the time, you know, the loss of productivity, trillions of dollars of loss of productivity in caregivers, and that problem is only going to get worse. So why did I decide to jump into this? Every product that I've built and launched has been to help streamline and leapfrog and maybe fix an unmet need, fix a problem that's out there with some unique technologies, not technology for itself, because you're going to find, we would see if we dug into technology, the technology is not rocket science. It is unique, and it is used in other industries that could be useful in the healthcare industry. Not difficult to implement, but difficult to figure out how to help it work within the medical community as well as the patient and bring those two together. So that's why I'm here. I'll tell you a little bit about the solution as I saw it. I'll call it information overload. Somebody just said this to me the other day. They're like, you just have information coming at you from every angle. The medical community is doing their best to give us the data as fast as they can. The Google is giving us data all the time. We all know we Google, probably laugh. I, Googled the other day and it said I had a stroke. It was a ocular migraine. I was not having a stroke. So these are dangerous things for people to have at their hands because they're trying to find data. If you look on the left, the consumer view, just me as a standalone patient, I have 7 portals that I have to go into. None of those are communicating with each other. Sometimes, if you're lucky in a large hospital, you will have them consolidating your records. Stanford, Kaiser, there are different organizations that do a great job of this. But for the rest of the providers, other organizations who can't afford to do that and really accelerate, they want to spend their time on serving the patient with medical diagnosis and care plans and all that. It's just administrative burden for them to try and bring this together. Then you add in education and the resources that you need to go find for your particular sickness, illness. Then add on the fact that you're caring for somebody else. So on the right, you see the caregiver view. With my mother, she had 12 to 14 doctors, plus my own 7, and my dad has 6. Now, as a caregiver, I am running around trying to figure out how to get into the portals to get their data, to educate myself on. I have no idea what to do for my dad. How am I effective caregiver for my dad if I don't understand what I have to do to get that information? I am fortunate. There are 6 children in my family. 2 are nurses. I can call them up any day of the week and say, what does this mean? Not everybody has that benefit. So what I came to after looking at all this and realizing how much pain that I had going through with my mom, say, this is not a hard problem to solve, but there is a lot of legality. There is a lot of concern about patient data. How do we bring those two together? Not let technology be a scary thing to enable the patient in a way that empower the patient to really own that data. It's not a sexy thing. I wish it was more sexy, but it's really the glue that brings that patient together with the provider in a protected and really informative way. So we'll talk about what we've built. We've been working on this for the last 18 months, primarily because we've been looking at different ways that we can pull this data together. Where is that data? How do we get the credible data? And how do we present that in a manner to the consumers, patients, providers, caregivers, insurers, because we'll talk about our go-to-market strategy. How do we bring that in a way that really satisfies as many groups as we can without sacrificing the interactiveness and the value to that patient? So we've started with caregivers, obviously, because that's the critical piece for us. We pull the records, we pull education, and we pull resources. And we do that in a way with teams that will support us, care management teams, nurse educators, diabetic educators, people who really understand that content that's out there versus allowing something like Google, which is a commercially driven product. You're going to see ads first versus Mayo Clinic, right? So those are the things that we'll sort through, pull that all together, bring that critical information and bring that up into a dashboard where the patient can basically widgetize it and have the information that's most important and critical to them at their fingertips. For a caregiver, this is critical. Being able to understand what to care about. My mother had a lung issue and pancreatic cancer. I didn't know what any of that data meant. It was all in medical terminology. Hey, here's what this means. Here's what you want to think about. Take this question back to your doctor. Now that you see this in your records, here's the conversation you should have with your doctor. Our goal is to just make that patient and caregiver a more engaged and educated patient to go into their doctor in between visits. And it's getting worse with the telehealth explosion of records being everywhere and the provider not having all of that data at their fingertips. Hopefully the patient with this and the caregiver can say, I've got all the records. I've been educated. Here's the things I need to talk about. So our year and a half has been about working on the user interface because it's got to be really super friendly to the consumer. Making sure that our providers are on board and understand how and what data we think is useful to share and in what way in education. It's not just going to, again, if information overload is the problem, our goal is not to dump data at the patient. It's to make it effective information, to make that patient and the caregiver more effective to go back to their provider and really have a good conversation about their going forward care plan. What's the opportunity? So there's a lot of numbers out there for care management, and we looked at it, started looking at records, started looking at patient portals, started looking at education. It could be really crazy. So we summed it down. The reason we talk about caregivers is kind of the starting market is because it makes the most sense. There are 53 million caregivers in the market today. There is going to be 90 within the next 20 years. The average number of caregivers per patient is going from 7 to 4. Automation of tasks is what I've started calling. This is really critical to making those caregivers more effective with their patients, helping their patients. My dad just yesterday said, when's the last time I got my knee shot? I don't know, Dad. It's in your portal. Can I have your login? That now you've got security issues that I'm going into their portal and I can change anything I want. You know, kids are like, hey, I really want my parent to do this. It's not intended to, but that's the way it's brought up today. So this allows, if we go after caregivers, we pursue them first, they really become an integrated part of the healthcare team. They get that data. It's controlled both by the patient. They work together with the patient, make a plan, and they become part of that team. Care management, which is a really big piece for ACOs. You see on the top, I've got ACOs as a part as well. The accountable care organizations, hiring care managers to bring that data and bring social worker data, bring, all of the education to the patient is basically a partner to a caregiver. So they're almost one in the same opportunity, but they're coming out in the market as two separate opportunities. So it's really just figuring out how to zero in, go after caregivers to really enable them, make sure that front end looks like what the customer wants it to be, that it is easy, that it is user-friendly, that it's secure, that sharing is easy, patient feels safe, that they can pick the data they want to share, and then everybody moves forward. And then chronically ill patients is kind of the next one we put on there. It's kind of so you can see the vision of where we can see this going. There are so many use cases. When I talk to the medical community, I just saw that person's traction slide. I wish I had one up here. Every single one says, I've got a use case for you. So it could go on forever. We started out really big, narrowing on caregivers, and it's just a really great growth opportunity, as well as solve a need that I think most of us probably feel right now. The ecosystem is mostly coming from the EMRs, the electronic medical records system, because they have been in charge of doing the records. That's now opened up with the Cures Act and enabling apps like ours to pull those records. Their focus is primarily on helping the provider with each patient and population health. So you'll see proxies, caregivers enabling sharing outside of the provider is just not really robust. We see that Kaiser does a better job. They're an insurance company and they have their own provider system. So they tend to bring different values of both and do a little bit more feature richness for the consumer because it makes sense. But there really isn't today, not to make a slide that looks like, we are number one. But when you look at caregiver tools, this is what we saw: patient data aggregation, pushing data, proxy views, sharing, and educational content at the time of the record. Customization is key. for our platform and how we will work within the ecosystem. Our business model, I apologize, the bottom did not quite come through like I thought, but I'll talk through it real quick. Our goal is to sell to the caregivers, as we said. It will be consumer focused as a primary target. And then we'll move through partners, ACOs, hospitals. We found use cases, the EMTs, EMRs, or the EDs have said, we would love a QR code with all the patient data immediately. We don't want to have to go dig. We don't have time to go dig when somebody comes into the ER. So we've seen lots of use cases, but these are the first partners that we target because there's a nice natural fit for that care management resource that all of them are putting in place. The insurance companies, the ACOs are putting a care manager. It's a nice partner and it's a tool that they could bring into play as well to communicate with the caregiver and the subscribers. And the bottom is just an idea of cost. That was really important to us and is a really important thing that we talk about quite often. The existing solutions out there today are not consumable from a consumer perspective. So they're just too expensive. And there's lots of reasons why they're enterprise. It's probably something that would be really boring to everybody, but just to get a sense for the cost effect or cost, the ability to price this out at a consumer acceptable level is really critical. And we've managed to do that with the way we've set this up. The team. So I talked about my background. And, I really come into it with strategic vision from a product perspective, sales. I've brought a team together for people to help really bring the specialists that we need. Most of them are outside the industry. Our advisory board is the medical community. So that's the way we've balanced this. We've got consumers, consumer marketing, data engineering, operations, all leaders in SaaS, consumer subscription-based models. How do we grow this company? How do we make it successful? How do we go to market? How do we appeal to that audience? It's social media, totally different than what traditional products are doing, selling to the providers. That strategy has become really critical. And then making sure that as we push our message out, it aligns with what the medical community wants us to push out. So in summary, what we see, there's a shrinking in medical resources, aging population and chronic illnesses. The technology fragmentation is wasting valuable time. Caregivers like myself, probably many of you on this call, play a critical role in the care team, but we sit outside that circle of information. So it's really critical that we integrate the caregiver with tools and resources and knowledge to become an effective member of the care circle. So thank you. We are in the process of, I'll open up for questions. I don't know how much time we have left. We are in the process of partnering, looking for partners, advising, financing, all of the above. So if anybody is interested, there's probably a role for where we can have more people help us drive this product in the right direction as we get ready to launch.
Okay, wonderful, Shannon. Thank you very much. We have about 2 minutes for questions.
Go ahead, Zena. Thanks so much, Shannon.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. Quick question on, do you see other innovators trying to do something similar? Certainly, it's very clear it's not available today, but how do you see in terms of protecting what you're developing from disruption from others?
Yeah, we actually see, I'm starting to see a lot. I'd say a year ago when the Cures Act had not kind of got delayed, there was not as many. We're starting to see a lot more, and I actually saw one earlier that looked exactly like ours, but it actually is a different angle. There's so many places, and that's one of the things we came out going, oh, we can solve world hunger with, data and helping people. We moved to using the data for a specific use case that really needed. Could there be other people? Sure. We have a unique solution where we can add on any data source, which is very different. It's protected. It's got IP around it. We can add on Fitbit data. We can add. So when you saw those 3 little boxes, we call them containers. That's an endless amount of data you can put in to customize, similar to, MyFitnessPal, Fitbit. We've really looked at these consumers app to make sure that we can mimic that kind of flexibility for the consumer. And we believe that's a unique opportunity. I do think that there's a lot of people that you hear, and we get a lot of people saying, oh, we know somebody who does that. So we've had to really work hard, and this is a great opportunity for us to make sure that I even saw one earlier, looked just like ours, but when I dug into it, it was like, oh, they're not the same. There's so much room for growth. The thing we've been told is watch the noise, be very clear about what you're not, which is a weird way to present what you're not, to make sure people understand what you are. And then not, like I said, not be over greedy. And so we've got the technology and that special secret sauce in our workflow engine that our team has built out. And then just making sure that we truly are targeting strong areas of need. Caregiving is such a huge area and very little focus on right now. So we just have to get into the market, really develop a front end that's flexible, savvy, and get a good market share to get a go-to-market, time-to-market lead that, you know, it's really kind of a little bit of a race after that, other than our ability to, the technology that does the actions and the tasks and the switching, we'll call it, in the middle, is really unique. It's hard to explain that on here for people who are probably not technology people, but we'll protect it with patents.
I appreciate what you said. Very insightful. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I mean, I think that's that for time, Shannon. I'm
Thank
going to
you.
move over to Samit. Thank you very much for sharing your technology with us, and also telling us you know, your story and stuff. So I'm going to ask Samit to come to the stage and present WellBrain.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thanks all the other presenters. 4 out of 5 women, and technically we'd have 5 out of 5 women because we recently hired Betsy Noor as our CEO. And it's kind of good to see this in these type of presentations, but I was really impressed with all the other presentations. So here I am to speak about WellBrain. And what is WellBrain? We're a digital health chronic pain management platform that enables physicians, hospital systems, even providers, all the way to TPAs and employers to help patients or providers better manage chronic pain patients and help fight the opiate epidemic and reduce dependencies on opiates and improve better outcomes. So let me begin with a story. This is a prototypical patient of a physician who went through multiple surgeries, multiple rounds of different types of opiate prescriptions, and never was able to resolve his pain. And through the integrative and holistic approach of what WellBrain provides, he was able to resolve his pain to a certain degree such that he could go back to work normally. And so this is the impact we're trying to drive across the country and even the world. We're mission driven, and that's the beauty behind WellBrain. So specifically, as I mentioned before, we incorporate various behavioral health, which is mental and the movement related health aspects into the equation as it addresses chronic pain. Chronic pain is defined as any patient that has 3 months or pain or more, and severe chronic pain is 6 months or more as well. And so we address all these issues in an overall platform, which I'll highlight later. We treat the whole patient. So what that means is there's this bidirectional, right? If you have chronic pain and if it persists and it doesn't resolve, most likely or not, about 85% of the people will develop some mental health issues because of that persistent nagging ability. It just has an impact on a person's well-being. So let me just help us take a step back here. The costs are enormous in the sense that the federal government through the General Accounting Office has accounted for $650 billion a year in various costs. These are the type of landscape in the pain aspects with respect to fibromyalgia, cancer pain, low back, hip pain, and what have you not. And so it just has a compounding effect, and it's just getting trebled with respect to the COVID and the pandemic. So the root causes of chronic pain manifests itself from many different places. We had our roots with pain practitioners, which is a subset of anesthesiology, but we have applicability to primary care physicians, any type of physician that works with patient, or any type of person that engenders or faces chronic pain in all these different subsets. And, you know, the bigger picture, as many of you may know, a relative or close one, but chronic pain is quite complicated. Having worked with many physicians and their patients themselves, I've seen it directly, and there's just so many other factors that there's no one size that fits all. And hence, you know, the reduction or the attempt to reduce the dependencies in opiates, because that was the answer before. So if you look at the different types of chronic pain patients, it's across the spectrum. And these are generally the 4 types of spectrums that we see. And you might say healthy and independent. At the same time, they have a different need case, but all the way, generally, most chronic pain patients kind of face a disruptive life or 24-hour sufferers. And what this means is like it increases. You might have 1 or 2 pain aspects all the way to 8 different pain indications, because it just multiple types of pain will manifest itself. And then if you're depressed and all these other parameters, it just gets exacerbated. There's also social determinants of health when we look to incorporate that into those factors, because, you know, health is varied by zip code, unfortunately, in this country. And those are some of those aspects. And then we also work with clinics as well to address this. So as I highlighted earlier before with the landscape, the bigger component of chronic pain also is the behavioral health. And that's really impacting about 147 million Americans. There's that big Venn diagram intersection of both those conditions, and it's becoming problematic. And what WellBrain does specifically is we help physicians and the medical system help in this holistic way to, or integrative way to better capture these, what is known as behavioral health integration and patient-reported outcomes on movement and depression and anxiety scores, along with treatment solutions to address the chronic pain specifically. And as far as the market, what we do is we address it to, like I mentioned before, providers, payers, employers, and also working with the medical device and pharmaceutical companies. And so we will reach the patient or the end user through these multiple channels. And that's why our business model is like a B2B2C per se. Now, our platform specifically, it's an iPad app in the clinical setting. It's a smartphone app at home. It's also PC and web driven. And as many of you alluded to before, the pandemic has forced digital health to be adopted much faster. And we've seen that success accordingly. Specifically, we're a platform. So we initially started out as a medically focused, mindful solution where we had specialized tracks recorded for depending on the medical condition, all the way from women who have pregnancy pain to even physician-assisted, what is it called, suicide. But we started out with this mindful meditation and then slowly expanded into these platform of services. And we're about to launch virtual PT. So if you think about it from the meds concept, which is called mindfulness, exercise, and diet, sleep, we're making it very easy for the physician to prescribe these to patients per se in order to get better outcomes. This is our future state. We are becoming a large data collection engine such that we have physicians can see, hey, woman age 35 with this type of neck pain, please use these type of services. And you'll see an 85% success rate because we can see it throughout the country what that impact is, as opposed to the whack-a-mole type of approach, because many physicians don't have that capability. So it's becoming a very powerful platform. Here's some shots of our iPad that's in the clinical setting. Literally, the use cases, patient comes in, they can do this at home, and then this data gets collected back to the practice. The practice can interpret it and then assign different types of programs, if you will, based on the patient-reported outcomes. This is just an example of our mindful meditation and then virtual PT. Here, if you take that Mark Goldberg example in the beginning, these are the dashboards that we provide with the physicians, and some of these dashboards will become self-directed. And what they do is this gives the overall snapshot of the patient. And before, it was very hard to do. As some of you alluded, information is siloed in many areas, or different practitioners had to incorporate other types of practitioners, and then they couldn't incorporate this data. We've made it very easy, whether either a family care practice or the physician, to look at the patient in this comprehensive way. And then alerts happen when the patient is home with the remote patient monitoring. If we help patients stay in the guardrails, and what that means is, especially with opiates, you know, if someone trends high on anxiety, depression, you want to act proactively to get the patient better. The overall impact of WellBrain is we're live with 200 providers. We're a venture-driven company and also looking for our next round of investment. And we have over 100,000 patients using our system, and we have various other partners underway, be it a health system to a medical device company. Another key aspect of our proven outcomes is we've had significant impact with our patient population through our providers or through our intermediaries, in the sense that we did 2 sets of sampling 3,000 patients each over a 6-month period, and we were able to replicate it. But we demonstrated this use that there was an 18% reduction in ER visits. 31% had a perceived reduction in pain scores, which is probably the most important thing. And then we had an actual 14% reduction in their opiate RX. So that's how we are mission driven. We want to help everyone as much as possible, and through different means. And lastly, I'll leave with the team. Here's Betsy, co-founded by 3 practicing pain physicians. We have about a 10 physician scientific advisory board. And what we've proven out in the clinical care setting, we're leveraging that and now working with the payers and self-employed insurers and other downstream verticals. And yeah, so that's WellBrain in a nutshell. Our whole mandate is try to help physicians or help people better manage their chronic pain condition, whether it's cancer or surgical pain, and help as many people as possible. So I'll leave it up for questions, and thank you for your time.
Amazing, Sumit. Thanks so much. Feel free to unshare as well so you can see our faces. Excellent work, and thanks so much for all the work that you're doing as well. Really incredible. So I'd say that the first question I had was around the different types of pain that your product is solving for right now. Out of all of them, which one would you find your product has driven the most success for patients, and why is that?
So we've rooted ourselves historically with chronic pain practitioners, and I would say 80% of them work with musculoskeletal issues, and it's usually the low back pain or the knee pain. So it's more the musculoskeletal issues. We have use cases with cancer and kidney related areas as well, but I would say our predominant use cases right now from the MSK, but we're seeing success in these other modalities of pain.
Gotcha, Sumit. And then my last follow-up question, I'll throw it back to Zena, is you mentioned that you currently have 200 MD clients and that you're currently serving 100,000 patients. So how does that math work out? Is it like because it's just in my head, there's like a very small customer base, but there's a very big patient access. So can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so happy to walk you through. So what that means is our physician customers, these are clinics with 5 to 8 physicians. Some practices may have 10,000 patients. Rural areas might only have 100. So if you take the average, it comes out to be about 2,000 patients per practitioner. So that's how the math works out that way.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sumit. Over to you, Zena.
Yeah, and sorry, I didn't catch. How long have these been in use?
Oh, so WellBrain initially started out as a concept in 2015, and I would say we really started accelerating our growth in 2016, 17, and then really expanded because of the pandemic. So yeah, it's a 6-year effort. So a lot of trial and effort, and yeah, a lot of product development as well.
And how is your user base engagement? They stay engaged? Do you see any drop off, or do they kind of stay steady?
Yeah, so it's interesting enough. I actually come from the video game industry, and I'm leveraging game loops to drive adherence and everything. So generally, chronic pain is a very difficult population to deal with, but it's interesting. We get a good subset that are highly motivated. I would say what we're seeing now is probably at least what happened 4 years ago. Literally, patients were like, "Doc, I don't care. I just want the pill. I just want the pill." Then the adherence was very low. Now we're seeing patients being much more proactive and educated because everyone's much more aware of the pandemic and saying, "Hey, I know I don't need to take that Percocet. What else can I do?" So yes, we are seeing, 20, what used to be 5% engagement now to 20 to 30%. And it's moving up north because, for example, we're introducing this virtual PT. Most patients will not want to go to the physical therapist and actually do that. And a second thing, to answer your question, another part of the engagement is we have patients get referred out to psychologists, because what happens is if a patient strides too high, they need to see a psychologist. And if you kind of tell them directly, and no one wants to see a psychologist in person, and first, there's also a shortage of psychologists. So our app helps engender that quality in the sense that the patient can have a secondary session with a psychologist through a teleconference, and all that data gets transferred back and sent to the practitioner. So answer your question, patient engagement is growing, but it's a very complex patient population to deal with.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Thank you. And might be interesting to see how that might change as things open up and people are getting kind of out of pandemic situation, exactly. Just to keep their engagement high on that, probably some learnings.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will need a couple of drum rolls, I guess. So obviously we have all of our lists up here. We have Tilanus or SpeechMed, Wellbrain, Rayos, My Health Hatch and Mama, all wonderful presentations today. And as I like to tell my kids, you're all winners in my eyes, of course, with the wonderful work that you're doing right now. But of course, that's why we have a pitch challenge like this to reward some of the folks who we think deserve that recognition. Of course, like I mentioned, we'd like to consider you all as winners, but we do have a third, second, and first place prize. The other two organizations will get, I think Stan mentioned, some form of a paper collaboration with HitLab, and the other three will get a little bit of a slightly bigger prize. So without further ado, in third place, we have Wellbrain. So Samit, congratulations to you and the team for coming in third. Congratulations. In second place, we have Rayos. So well done, Annalisa. You guys came second. And in first place, out of the remaining three companies, we have Mama. So congratulations, Maureen, for coming in first place. So really, really wonderful presentation today from all 5 organizations. I just want to, say thank you and echo what the judges were saying as well in terms of the work that you guys are doing and the groundbreaking changes you guys are bringing to the healthcare industry. I think Stan's on. Did you want to say any final words, Stan, before we pop off?
Thank you, Jerry. And again, tremendous work and outstanding applications from the well north of 100 applications that we received in total. And just the phenomenal winners today, as well as the honorable mentions. And hats off to our judges. Really appreciate everyone's help on the judging process, particularly Zina Manji and Brendan Kumarsamy. Really wonderful working with everyone. And of course, our fearless leader, Jerry Antamano, Captain Antamano, wonderful leadership here, and the Breakthrough Challenge coordinator, Nico Canaris. Thank you, Nico, as well, for the hours and hours and the days and the months of work and putting this together. Just amazing what you do every day, and we really appreciate you both, Jerry and Nico. Thank you all. Back to you, Jerry.
No, cheers, Stan. Yep, again, really wonderful presentation from everybody. Thank you, the audience, for being so engaging as well today. Well, as I say, don't go anywhere, but you can join us on the next panel or discussion or interview where actually we're going to stick with Breakthrough and actually interview a previous winner, I think from the last summit. Stan is going to be interviewing Kelly Benning from Live Metric, who was one of the winners in the December challenge. So hopefully see you all there. I'm sure she's got some wonderful insights as to how the challenge has helped her and what Live Metric is doing now. So everyone grab a cup of tea before we go over to the next panel, and I will see you all there.